In stories about the end of times, you've usually got your heroes and your villains, right? Saviors and destroyers, good versus evil. But what if one group's prophesied savior was actually the Antichrist for another? Well, today we're digging into a really controversial text that makes exactly that argument. We're going to break down how the author builds this case piece by piece. Let's dive in. Okay, so the author wastes no time and just drops this bombshell of a claim right at the start. Now, just so we're all on the same page, the Mahdi in Shia Islam is this long-awaited redeemer figure, someone who's supposed to fill the world with justice. The Dajjal, on the flip side, is basically the ultimate deceiver, a kind of antichrist figure. And the whole point of the book we're looking at is to argue that these two, they're actually the exact same person. All right, so if you're going to make a claim that huge, you need some evidence, right? So where does the author even start? Well, the first piece of the puzzle they present is all about geography. It comes down to one specific place, where the Dajjal is supposedly going to appear. The author points to a specific prophecy from a hadith. And a hadith, is a recorded saying or tradition of the Prophet Muhammad. And this particular one says the Dajjal will emerge from a city called Isfahan, in what's now Iran. And not just anywhere in Isfahan, but from its Jewish quarter. For this author, this specific location is the absolute cornerstone of their entire argument. But wait a second, you might be thinking, hang on, I've heard other prophecies. And you'd be right. The author knows this and brings up another hadith that says the Dajjal will emerge from a place called Khorasan. So which one is it? Isfahan or Khorasan? This looks like a major contradiction, but the author actually uses this to make their point even stronger. So here's the twist. The author explains that it's not an either-or situation at all. See, Khorasan wasn't just a city, it was this huge historical region, kind of like a massive province. And guess what city is located right inside that ancient region of Khorasan? Isfahan. So in the author's view, there's no contradiction. Both prophecies point to the exact same spot. Okay, so the author has zeroed in on a location in Iran. The next question is, who's going to follow this guy? Who's supposed to make up the Dajjal's army according to this argument? Remember that prophecy about Isfahan we just talked about? Well, it didn't just name a place. It gave a number, 70,000. And in these kinds of end times prophecies, specific numbers like that really grab people's attention. The author here argues this isn't just a symbol. Nope. They see it as a literal number that helps us identify exactly who is going to be in this alliance. So, according to the source, this army is made up of two main groups. First, you have those 70,000 Jews from Isfahan, straight from the Hadith. And then second, there's a group the author calls the Zoroastrian Shia. Now, that's a really loaded term. It's what's known as a polemical label, used in this text to basically argue that some Shia beliefs have been mixed with older pre-Islamic Persian religions. This idea of an alliance between these two groups, it's absolutely central to the author's whole theory. All right, we've covered the where and the who. Now we get to the what. And this is what the author presents as the final nail in the coffin, the most explosive piece of evidence in the whole book. We're shifting from prophecies about places and people to prophecies about what this figure will actually do. And this is where the argument takes a really wild turn. The author claims that you don't even have to look at outside sources. They allege that Shia texts themselves contain prophecies that their own awaited Mahdi that he will destroy Islam's holiest sites. It's a pretty stunning claim to make. And we're not talking about just any random buildings here. The author gets very specific. The alleged targets are the absolute ground zero of the Islamic world. The Kaaba in Mecca, the single most sacred site, the direction all Muslims pray towards, and the Prophet's mosque in Medina. And according to the source, after taking down the two most important mosques, the plan is to wipe out every other mosque on the planet. And then comes the most shocking claim in the entire text. According to the author, these prophecies say the Mahdi won't just destroy the mosques, he will desecrate them in the worst way possible. This single alleged act is really the linchpin holding the author's entire argument together. Okay, let's recap. We've got the place, Isfahan, we've got the followers, and we've got the alleged actions, these horrific acts of destruction. So how does the author tie all of this together into one neat, logical conclusion? The author lays it out as a really simple three-step deduction. Step 1. They claim Shia texts say their Mahdi is going to destroy Islam's holiest sites. Step 2. They state as a fact that no true Muslim would ever do something like that. So, step 3, the conclusion becomes obvious, at least to the author. This guy can't possibly be a savior. He has to be the great deceiver, the Dajjal. And that brings us to the grand finale, the author's complete unified theory. This is where all the threads, the location, the followers, the terrible acts, all get woven together into one final statement. So here it is, the author's ultimate conclusion. The Mahdi that the Shia are waiting for is not a savior. He is, in fact, the Dajjal. And not only that, but the author claims his followers are here right now, actively preparing the world for his arrival. Now, just to be perfectly clear about where this all comes from, the argument we've just laid out is from a book called The Danger of Zoroastrian Shi'ism by Abdullah Bufim. Everything we've talked about, all the claims, the interpretations, the logic, it's all coming directly from that one source. So there you have it. That's the argument, from A to Z. Now, our point here today wasn't to say whether this is right or wrong, but just to understand how the argument is built. But it does leave us with a much bigger question, doesn't it? When you see arguments like this, it makes you wonder, how did these powerful stories about the end of the world actually affect the world we live in right now? How do they shape how we see each other, and maybe even the conflicts we see on the news?